What's up guys, welcome back to a brand new video, and as you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about my thoughts, both negative, positive, cruel and honest, about the Undisputed beta that we experienced this weekend just gone. Now hopefully this video isn't too long. I will try and get through my points as quickly as possible. Now I just want to say everyone's opinion is completely welcome here, but the game has been out long enough, you guys have known about it long enough, the beta is a well-known thing now. For if your only opinion is it's trash, then why are you even here? It's not going to change over a 24-hour period. That is absolutely fine if you do not like it, but I've got people commenting saying like, oh, this looks awesome, man, like, you know, needs some tweaks but very excited, and there'll be people commenting on their comments, copy and pasting their same thing, going, this looks so trash, so shit, what's the point? If you don't like it, that is fine. I've got no issue with that. That is your opinion. You are entitled to that. Fair enough. UFC 5 is going to be next summer, most likely. Just wait for that. This meme that I saw on Twitter summed it up perfectly. But gaming is subjective. Some people enjoy things, some people don't. You don't need to come into a video that's very clearly titled Undisputed and I just don't get it. I just don't understand that mindset. I understand if people don't like it. That is part of gaming. That is part of having an opinion. I understand. It's so weird to have so much free time that you can do that. Now, before we get into the positives and the negatives, I just want to give you guys a quick few disclaimers about the beta. So they did remove the flash knockdowns and flash stuns. They also removed the clinch and the push. Now, I understand why they did this, but I do not agree with it. Without flash drops, flash KOs, flash stuns or rocks, you almost had to kill your opponent to stun them or hurt them. It was a very clear pain in the ass for everyone that played. But to a certain point, I believe they wanted us to test the judges, test that full fight stamina and damage. And now by full fight, I suppose I mean the 8 rounds that they gave us. I honestly believe if we had the extra rounds, 9 to 12, we would have had tons more KOs. And finally, if we had a matchup like Fury versus Frazier, longer man versus shorter man, we could have experienced a completely different beta, guys. But they gave us Gatti and Ward, who are quite notorious for going to war with each other for 3 separate fights. So maybe they weren't the best fighters to pick for people first going into the game, but it is what it is. I still had fun. So we're going to start with the negatives and things that need to be fixed ASAP to more petty details, and then I'll be doing the positives afterwards. Now, please don't take this as a final product. Still City Interactive clearly want to improve it, as we saw during the beta. They were pushing out updates during the beta. They pushed out more updates during the beta than I saw fucking Battlefield 2042 do in their first week of full release. Like, it's crazy. So they clearly want a good game, and they clearly want us to enjoy the game. I did see people talking about, like, the crowd and the walkout more than actual gameplay, which I did find kind of funny. Like, I appreciate that you want it to be more detailed, but this was a stress test for online and to focus on gameplay. I didn't really get why people were saying the crowd looks so dead. Like, I appreciate it's not perfect, but that wasn't really the focus. But I suppose you're entitled to you know, talk about what you want. You'll also notice that some things will fall into both the negative and the positive categories during this video. It will make sense later in the video, but just remember that as I'm listing things, because sometimes the negatives might be a lot, but then the positives will make sense afterwards. Let's just get into the negatives right off the bounce. The first one is we're going to address the elephant in the room, the servers. Day 1 was absolutely fucked. I'm impressed at how fast they fixed it over 2 days. Some people, like Martial Mind, which I was really gutted about, had some terrible issues, which is odd because I think one of the developers lives in the same state as him and played plenty. I was really gutted that Martial Mind didn't get to play more. Hopefully if they do another one, they do offline so he can play more, because he's one of my YouTube idols, so I love watching him. So it was a shame that not everyone got to play, but here in the UK, by day 2 and 3, we were able to get a good 6, 7, 8 odd fights in across the 3 hours, which was pretty good. Thing is, it was really easy to spam hooks. I had more slow-paced jab fights as well, but a good portion chose to just spam hooks, and it's way too easy. But on the other hand, I suppose we could blame the players as much as we blame the game. Spam is spam, it will always be in games, but they have made the hooks, especially same-hand hooks, way too quick and way too easy to throw. It's something I know they're already looking into, but I just want to address it because it's fucking horrible and it looks ugly and it makes the game look cheap and shit. But as I said, spam is spam, it's in every game. On to the next thing, which is stop and power. On more shots, especially like jabs and straights, the power jab felt good, but I had a few shots that did stop people in their tracks. But I feel like a jab needs to be a more useful tool for a fighter throwing it, by either using it to stop the opponent in their tracks, just that pop, or to use it to set up other shots. It didn't really feel worth it unless both of you decided to use your jab. If there was some guy throwing 6 hook punch combinations and you wanted to jab, you're always going to come off less in that exchange just because they're still ironing details out with using that jab. I just wanted to have a bit more pop and not have to use the power one. If someone's walking into me, I want to be able to jab, 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 just double up, triple up on it and snap their head back and then load up on that straight. Just the straight shots didn't have the pop in that I wanted. Now this one is the biggest one to me. It's not the last one, but this one is just the biggest one, and that is a vulnerability system. There was absolutely no punishment for being reckless, hence why so many people decide to spam hooks. However, this could be fixed by the flash knockdowns or the flash KOs, which they did remove for the beta. As like I said, you always have to kill your opponent to rock them, but a vulnerability system being in place would be when someone's being reckless or even putting together smart combinations, you know that at any moment it can benefit you or it can be dangerous. If you maybe jab, jab and you throw a meaty hook and I'm able to catch you with a sharp hook, maybe I'll rock you, maybe I'll drop you with a flash and you'll be fine, but still I've won that round. A vulnerability system and the flash knockdowns and KOs I truly believe will be a game changer. I think they removed the wrong things from the beta. I'm still not going to agree with it. Like I said, I understand, but I still don't agree with it. Now, this one is something a lot of people notice and something that generally, yeah, needs to be fixed, and that is the lack of level change when throwing jabs or straights to the body. The jab to the body is a little bit better, but the straight to the body, I'd say 90% of the time is thrown from the stood up position. Instead of dropping that weight down, you know, bending those knees, corking that straight into the body, a lot of the time, it's just thrown from tiny little bent knees. It can't be like that. And sometimes you can throw a straight from an angle, pull back and throw it to the body from an angle. But a lot of the time, you're going to drop that weight to launch that straight to the body. One key thing that I knew when I realized we weren't going low enough is I kept getting hit in the head with standard headshots while trying to throw the body straight. We need to make sure we're ducking down to the chest level so our eye is level with that higher abdomen, that lower chest bone to cork that shot into the stomach. That's what we need to see from those straight shots. Well, you guys knew this one was coming, and that is damage. Now again, this could be because we almost have to kill our opponents because we lack the flash knockdowns or KOs. And I like the idea of not every drop coming from a rock. So maybe the lack of flash knockdown and flash KO is causing this punch sponge issue that we're experiencing. However, I had fights where I had opponents on 10% stamina, less than 50 or 40% health, just eating shots, both male and female. I saw a few people like trying to defend it, saying, oh, well, it's Gatty, well, it's Ward. I don't care. I had it with everybody, and I would have them against the ropes. There'd be no stamina, 40% health, the 7th round, bop, 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 and they just eat it. And they could throw back because there was no punishment for being reckless. Though we just needed that more, just damage to be that little bit more. I'm not saying I want fights to be over like this all the time, but there just needs to be at that level where, okay, you are now constantly vulnerable because you are so exhausted. I don't want it to be every punch once their exhaust knocks them out, but if they're getting hit with some big combinations, head and body, they're not able to block properly, they should go down, they should be hurt or something. Which brings me on to the stamina system. You really didn't get punished for being low or borderline empty on stamina. You could continue to move somewhat fluidly, take massive shots while completely exhausted, and people knew that. Over 8 rounds, people could go for broke and survive. I'm still convinced you give me that round 9, I would have killed most of these people, but still, that was a big issue I think that a lot of us noticed. Now if we move on to a specific punch for a negative, and that is the uppercut. Both in-game and in real life, these are not often easy things to land, but it needs to be worth it when you do land it. Unless it was a power mod uppercut on the inside, which is a very specific, I know. That was the only time I found it useful. And the only other time really was I had one time where Harper rushed in and I threw the uppercut and it kind of stopped her in her tracks and cocked their head back, but I had to take her momentum with me. I had times where someone would slip down into my fist, nothing. Wouldn't even react to it. During combos, it's not useful. It's a useless counterpunch tool. I did notice that most fighters in the beta did have a pretty cool, somewhat unique uppercut animation. Some people said they didn't like it, some people said they did. I didn't mind the uppercut animation, to be honest, but they're just kind of useless, which is a shame because I love using the uppercut, but we just couldn't. And so many people commented saying, why are you not throwing uppercuts? And this is why, because they didn't do much. It was almost like flipping a 10-sided coin, or rolling a 10-sided dice is probably a better example. You know, if it lands on 1, you get a good uppercut. If it lands on 2 to 10, you get a useless uppercut. And it just wasn't worth the risk when everyone else, or at least 70-75% of people, would throw in hooks. Now the get up animation. The minigame is fine. Don't blame the minigame because you suck at it. I got up 3 times in one fight. It is not difficult. but everything other than taking a knee manually, even if it's a body drop that forces you to take a knee, will go into a face down count animation. Now hopefully this is just a preset for the beta and will be improved during the early access period, but the amount of times I dropped someone with a body shot and then it would cut and they'd be face down, like dribbling out their eyeballs, and the ref would be counting. I'm like, come on, like that was the only time I was really actually like, come on, like you taking the piss. But you know, hopefully this was just a placeholder to show you guys how the minigame works. The minigame is not complicated, by the way. I saw people saying it. It's just not. It's one of the most simple minigames I've ever used. But that to one side, onto the next thing is cuts and blood. Now we saw cuts over the eyebrows, which look cool. However, from my experience, we didn't see blood on the shorts, and we've also not seen any broken noses or bleeding noses, cut lips, swollen lips in this beta. I did swell Sophie Alicia's face, the center of her face, a little bit, but it wasn't easy to see, and it was fucking difficult to do. And the final two, one is useful, one is pretty petty, I'm not going to lie. The auto correction of a close straight to a backhand hook. Now they explained why they did this, because they mentioned talking to pro boxers, and they mentioned that, you know, it makes sense to not throw the straight from close range. Some people might accidentally throw it, but simply, and I say this with my heart, I don't give a fuck. Do not spoon feed people or me. If I make a mistake and I throw a straight in range, let me make that mistake. Let it miss someone's head. I don't care. It started to correct into a hook at too far away. I was setting up straights, but as they were stepping in, the game was knowing they were coming in and it was correcting it to a hook. Whereas some of them straights would have snapped people back. Don't correct any of my punches into something else. I understand why they've done it, because it might be more attractive on the eyes, but I don't care. Just, I should know when to throw that hook. That's on me. My other example is if I throw a straight and someone steps in head down, so that the straight goes over the shoulder and now they're really close and they want to catch me on the inside. That is their perfect timing. They've seen it coming. They've timed it. Why should the game give me the hook? It shouldn't. And the final one is it kept resetting my camera settings after every time I closed the game and opened it again. That pissed me off, because I kept having to do it, because some of the cameras gave me some real fucking headaches. But other than that, now that we're done with that, let's get into the positives. Now let's start with something that I'm an absolute nerd for that most of you won't care about, the menus. The fighter selection screen is just lovely, a great way to show all the stats, details and traits. I really liked it, well done. But now let's get into the positives of the gameplay. The movement, not just the loose movement, the standard movement. This movement gives you the ability to not only move in and out freely, despite from time to time feeling like you'd sometimes be like magnetic together, but you could pull out. It just took like that second to pull you away, which was odd. I like that you're constantly shift and wait, but the movement really gives you the freedom to fight your fight. Jab in and out, enter the pocket and rip the body and move out. Which brings me to my next point, the tools the game offers. This is one of the biggest positives for me. I never truly felt like any one style didn't work. I was able to have fights where I could use my jab more, use hooks more, inside fighting more, use single punch selection more, even counters more. Now, of course, I mentioned the hook spam was easy, but I was very lucky. I had not many of my opponents done that, and when they did, you could kind of correct them. You could kind of give them a slap, don't do that kind of thing, because they would learn it's not going to work. But as I said, spam is spam. It's going to be in games. That's 50-50 the players, 50-50 the game's fault. But the game really does offer you a lot of tools. And this early, you know, at a beta stage, to offer you this many tools and not already not be like, oh, the jab is meta, the uppercut is meta. Yes, the hook is spam, but you can beat it pretty easily, which is a great tool to know. Now on to the next positive, and of course, you guys knew this one was coming, the loose movement. The loose movement is honestly a game changer in combat sports games. I've seen some great plays with it. I used it during one of my fights, and it really changed the way I could move in and out and fight my fight the way I wanted to. However, I'd say it's so good because there's no real risk to using it. Some people actually ask me what's the point in not using it. Other than being a bit quicker, maybe some people like to fight a slower footwork fight. But other than that, there is no risk. They mentioned about how you may take more damage in it, you may do this, you may do that. There is no risk to reward. I fought people that were in loose movement the whole time. I fought in loose movement the whole time. There is no risk to it. Yes, you may not be able to shift weight quite as quick and you may get caught with a jab coming in, but there's no risk to it. It needs to be, if you are moving around like that, if you're being reckless, you're not planting your feet, you may be slightly off balance at times. They need to increase the risk factor, which again, I suppose could be contributed to the flash knockdowns, blah, blah, blah. But still, there seems to be no real risk to using the loose movement. You may as well use it all the time at the minute. But that's just my thoughts on that. Now, the next few were in the negatives, but they obviously are making a return in the positives, and that is damage. They made clear improvements from day 1 to 2, so in terms of those improvements, that is for sure a positive. While not perfect, I saw improvement in such a short period of time. Even from being rocked in the first round, would you believe? Getting late KOs to head and body, as well as even seeing more slow-paced first-round KOs instead of the crazy spam shit that we often saw. It was awful. It still pisses me off because it looks so ugly. But I saw someone in the Discord landed less than 20 punches in the first round and got a knockout in the first round just by using smart counters and waiting for the opponent to gas. It was really good to see that improvement and that damage. While it is not perfect and it is currently a negative and a positive, it's definitely on its way to where we want it to be. And now stamina. It was great to see that we could be rewarded for fighting slow. Through the 8 rounds, you wouldn't just randomly lose stamina. Stamina loss was all about missing, getting hit, using big side steps and back steps too often. It was also great to see that body shots, getting hit to the body shots, we saw grand stamina loss when getting hit to the body. But it was a shame that we didn't see the final step of that reward, which is the dropping, the hurting, the knocking out of people when they're completely exhausted. But someone like me, who fought a very slow-paced fight compared to most players, I was losing the starting rounds due to a slow start, but it was awesome to see me rewarded in that stamina advantage. So stamina and damage is both pros and cons. And then we go to cuts and swelling. It was great to see some cuts finally bleeding down the chest, and it was also cool to be able to see that the cuts and the swelling recover if you avoid damage during rounds. The cut man does his job. And it was really cool to see, you know, I had a time where I had a cut and I was bleeding, and then I kept that part of my face protected because he didn't throw as many hooks on that side. And then the next round, he couldn't cut it open again. Or he did, but it was like 2 rounds later. But it was able to be recovered because the cut man done his job and I done mine inside the ring. It was also cool to see the faces turn red after eating punches on more pasty white fighters like myself. Because I know a thing or two about getting punched in the arm and then suddenly it goes red and looked like a tomato. So it was cool to see that on fighters like Mickey Ward, who was quite pale anyways. This is a controversial one, guys, I'm not going to lie. Judges. Now, while some of us did have robberies, including me, I thoroughly enjoyed having a close fight, going to the judges, and honestly not knowing which way it would be scored, because close fights are close fights. It's great to have a wide variety of judges focus on different things. However, some of them did feel tunnel vision on certain things, but I did enjoy having the close rounds, the draws, the split decisions, the majority decisions, and you knew that when you won that easy unanimous decision, it was honestly rewarding because all the judges saw the same thing. And it was great to see not someone figure out the judges within a few seconds, back like in UFC 1 and UFC 2 when I played career. I knew if I had to win a 5th round in career mode, I knew how to win that round perfectly. And it was great to see that, you know, we couldn't just figure it out like that. Now, the last two, maybe you guys may disagree with, some of you agree. And the first one of the last two is tracking or lack thereof. I love the ability to be able to miss by a millimeter. The accuracy felt realistic. Most fights had 30 to 60% accuracy across all rounds and all styles. It just felt good. It's for sure something you have to get used to. However, a few more things are sorted, like flash knockdowns, flash KOs. The accuracy will be far more rewarding, and landing will be far more rewarding too. But I really liked that. At first, I wasn't too sure about how the tracking would actually feel. I kept talking about there won't be any tracking, but I was honestly like, how will it feel? And I honestly really enjoyed it. A few shots that should land that just glide by, like you're like, come on, why didn't you extend your arm? I wanted you to. Sometimes the straights weren't fully extending. Sometimes the jabs weren't fully extending. But, you know, as a most part, for a combat sports game to risk going for very minimal tracking, I think it paid off. And the last one, and honestly, I'm not sure what to call this one, but let's just say the messiness. But let me explain before, you know, you guys judge me. I really like that when you're throwing and someone hits you, it doesn't just stop your punch, like we've seen in other boxing and MMA video games. In real life, it tends to affect your accuracy. If you guys have fought in real life or watched real boxing, you'll see that when someone is throwing mid-punch, it doesn't stop their punch, it tends to throw off their accuracy. You see it all the time. Floyd was always like it. He would catch people mid-throw so their head would guide their fist elsewhere. For example, the Canelo fight, he got hit in the shoulder more times because he hit Canelo's head, throwing the accuracy off. That's what I prefer. I don't like... EA Sports MMA is a great game, but that is one of those games where exchanges are tit for tat. They're not multiple exchanges. You have to parry or you will just get punched repeatedly. You cannot punch while being punched. And for me, as a player, as a consumer, and I know most people might not agree with me, I think I genuinely preferred this ability to sometimes have messy exchanges. And yes, maybe it does encourage you to take that back step from the inside, but I like it. Now, before we get to the end of the video, this one is a 50-50 one. This one is split dead down the middle. I wanted to talk about it separately at the end of the video. I'm going to talk about the beta as a whole very quickly at the very end, just give it my overall quick thoughts. This one has both pros and cons that I want to talk about, and that is animations. There are some that I loved, there are some that I disliked. As animations, this is a key conversation that's been happening. Now, I feel like people are watching certain things and then they're painting it all with the same brush. For example, the ability to check hook is fantastic. It's amazing. Check hook to the head, check hook to the body is great. You do see rotation in the hips when throwing straights. The jab is a little bit lackluster in its animation. The straights could maybe rotate a bit more, but in terms of people saying that they're not rotating at all, they are. I can show you clips, which I'm sure you've probably seen on screen right now, of Terry Harper or anyone throwing a straight and she is rotating her hips. I mean, does every boxer rotate textbook? Not really. Look at Wilder's last knockout. That was one of the ugliest things I've ever seen, but it was absolutely incredible. But it wasn't an attractive knockout in terms of textbook boxing, and not everyone is as textbook as that. I quite like some of the hooks. The body uppercuts are lovely, but some of the head uppercuts animations is a bit iffy, but not the worst things ever. The biggest ones for me are just those body straight shots. There is just not enough depth in them. They need to lower the body. They need to drop levels when throwing them. That's why coaches say change level. You want to change the level when you go to the body. So if they're throwing to the head, you go under their shot and back over to the head. That's the whole point of changing levels. I think that's my biggest one. But like things like the check hook, the lead hook, not even just the check, just the standard lead hook is really nice. It can go over the jab. The ability to pivot and move around with those animations is really nice. Now, you know, I'm not a coder and I'm not a world-class boxer. You know, I'm someone that does box, I'm someone that does spar, I'm someone that has fought. You know, I can only give my advice off what I believe. You know, I know for a fact that everybody fights different. I think some people expect every boxer to be textbook, and, you know, that's how they are in most fighting games. At least what we've had before, because it's easier to have 50 fighters be one of 3 styles than it is to have 50 fighters be 50 different styles. It's just easier that way for these companies, so I get it. But for me, you have to, and for, you know, for me and I think for you guys, you have to understand that boxers are always fighting different styles. They're always being different in their fights, and some are absolutely iconic. But some fighters are textbook, and that's cool. Some fighters are not, and that's cool. You know what I mean? But as a whole, I hope I haven't gone on for too long, guys, but as a whole, for the Undisputed beta, server issues aside, I think it was a success. I think people really, really enjoyed it. I think the overall reception is about, probably say, a good 90% to 10% or maybe 80% to 20% of positive to negative. And of course, most of those people are offering criticism on what they'd like to see. Most people are saying, you know, for example, a comment that I have recently is we need more impactful ragdoll. Completely understand. That's no issue, like whatsoever. Some people are saying, I like the way the body shots flow. I like the way you went to the body. However, why didn't you get rewarded for it? These are fair comments. I thoroughly enjoyed it. For a beta, it's probably one of the best betas I've ever played. But as a whole, I think in terms of realism, I'd give it a good 7.5 out of 10. There's still things to be improved. For fun, I'd give it a 9.5 out of 10. I had tons of fun. I haven't had this much fun on a game in a long time. Every game was fun. And I really enjoyed myself, and that's what video games are about, guys. They're about having fun. And, you know, from some of the comments, I think that you guys haven't had fun on a video game in about 15 years, because some people are so fucking negative, it's insane. But, you know, I had a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed myself. If you guys played it, I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves as well. You know, again, I know I didn't make the game, but I am sorry that some of you guys didn't get to experience the game like some of us because of the servers, or maybe you only got 3 or 4 games and you only fought spammers. Unfortunately, that's just the way video games be. Now, one more thing for people worrying about punches not having enough impact, I just want to put this up on screen here. This was someone's comment after the UFC 4 beta. Now, the UFC 4 game has got some nice impact in their punches, but this is how people felt after their beta. Feels like you're hitting air or something, the punches have no impact, and people agreed. So don't always take things as the final product. Don't worry. Have faith in the game. You know, they're doing a great job, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. You know, I've got positives, I've got negatives. There were some things that done my head in. There were some things that I really loved. But all in all, you know, I want the best possible game. As I always say, guys, sucking them off and swallowing is never, ever going to help the game be better. But I hope you guys enjoyed. You know, I'm sorry that it went on for so long. I didn't expect the video to be so long, but I think I've written about 5,000 words or something stupid. It's been ridiculous. But, you know, I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.